We should point out that these were recorded at the same time, so if there's any Patreons coming, that I'll get a shout out in the next video.
Yes, because we're actually Bill and Phil were recorded together. Sorry, we're trying to get ahead of ourselves so we can do more stuff.
Yeah.
Hello and welcome to In the Court of the Wenton King. Check out our Patreon at www.patreon.com/Wenton King. Yeah, I can't speak very clearly. Buy us a coffee if you'd like to. Thank you very much.
A couple of bucks is all it takes.
Phill Collins, the Phill Collins biography. Take the itchy beard off. Here's a question: was Phill Collins better when he had a beard?
Oh, of course. Everyone's
and you
realise,
definitely, absolutely. When he shaved the beard, it's all changed. This is good because it's a real yin to yang from last week. It is complete, and Bill and Phil are not too different as players. My two favourite drummers, definitely. They are the lighter end of things. Phil isn't a jazz drummer at all, so that's interesting. But then there is an argument that Bill isn't. He's a jazzy drummer. Is he a jazz drummer? Jazzos would probably think not, I'd imagine. But rock people would probably say, yeah, he is.
He's a jazz fusion drummer.
Yeah, but I suppose they've got very, very similar techniques with massively different personalities. Bill does what he wants, and that's his thing. He's not just doing what he wants. He believes in that ideology. I don't want to do it now. I'm going to do nothing for this whole piece, and it's going to sound great. And he gets a credit for admirable restraint. Or he's going to get at the wrong time, and it sounds amazing. Whereas Phil is the driven, hard worker, workaholic, who plays some fantastic stuff. It's just awesome, And he never really. His drumming is always fantastic. It's not like he played well in the 70s and didn't play well in the 80s. I think from his perspective, there's a drop off, and it's just about because you have to be so focused and practicing, especially when you're singing, and you're not even going to play the drums for half the concert, but most of the concert. But still, you listen to Los Endos in '87. It's amazing, and it's better than the album version. Controversial. But yeah, very different. Reflects their personalities, reflects the way they play. This is an autobiography about his life and his wives. All the wives, Dave. And all that stuff. And in the midst of recording the albums, what happened personally and how it felt and all that stuff. Unlike the Bill one. So that it is a great read in that completely opposite sense. I had to get this, but I did wait a year. I actually pre-ordered the paperback version like a year after when it came out. There was another year before the paperback came out, so I actually ordered it on Amazon a year in advance because I didn't want the hardback version. So I obviously didn't want it that much. There's interesting stuff in there. And I was surprised how it didn't. My interest didn't wane. Traditionally, with rock musician biographies generally, or music biographies, and particularly autobiographies, it's all about like half the book is like them growing up and doing the first album, and then then we made that album, and then we made that album, and then we did a live album, and then that famous thing happened, and then that's the end now. Bye. But this is good all the way through, and I was surprised that I found it just as compelling when he's talking about face value, because that actually he really gives the proper lowdown on Live Aid. I think for the first time. I think he was fairly stum about it for many years, and this is the thing that he took the blame. People blamed him. People said, Phill Collins ruined it. No, he didn't. He'd just flown Concorde and he played absolutely fine. Jimmy Page was off his head. Plant was and you blame Phill Collins. Phill Collins is the most technically able person to have played with Led Zeppelin, drummer. They'll get people not liking that because John Bonham is but technically it would have opened things out. It wouldn't have really sounded like Led Zeppelin though. It would have been a different thing altogether. But at the same time, Led Zeppelin in the 80s, we know it would have been terrible. Let's be serious. It would have been terrible. Something would have changed anyway. And Phil was very creative at that time with stuff we've no interest in. and Genesis were still going for some reason, and for some reason, just by chance almost, that they just get more and more successful, and that's interesting. And the fact that he's a workaholic, and that ruined his life in the end. The fact that he's a workaholic was a problem, and that's why he had all his divorces. He places the blame on himself for for his first divorce. And has he written it so he's taking the blame, but really he's writing it so that she's to blame, or actually is she to blame? She cheated on him.
Yeah.
But then with the second one, he cheated on her. And obviously, that's not the celebrity gossipiness. He's very one-dimensional in that sense. The fact that he takes the blame for all the crap, the Phill Collins hating stuff, really annoys me. And it's not him. It's not his fault. It's nothing to do with him. It's just nonsense. How did you do with it?
I did all right. I mean, it's quite long.
Because
he's had quite a long career. If you think he's going from early 70s right through till...
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
He was still touring with Genesis in 2000, what was it, 7 or something like that.
Yeah, they came back in 2007. Yeah. When they couldn't get back with Peter, they basically let's just do the three of us anyway.
Yeah, I mean, the good... I mean, it's interesting to get some of his background, and it is important. There is a little bit of that going on at the start, and I get a bit bored of this now. Let's get to the music. And he does actually fairly quickly get to the music in the scheme of things.
Well, he must recognise now, actually, that people reading that are not the people who listen to You Can't Hurry Love. They'll all be Genesis fans.
Yeah.
You want to read about
the Cage. Yeah. And, I mean, for me, that was where the interest was, the early days of Genesis and how that went. And I'm particularly interested in the relationship between Mike Rutherford and the other Posh Boys.
Yeah.
To see if it's as I suspect it was.
Yeah, and it does sound like Phill was the balancing factor and all that. Yeah.
Yeah. I was interested in Steve Hackett, when he left, what was fueling that. And there aren't that many details in there, really. I don't know if Steve Hackett done a...
I don't think so. I don't think so.
It's interesting.
That's what he probably thinks it's up to him to say that, but he does say Steve Hackett didn't see him. He saw him on the way to the studio. He didn't say anything, and the reason was Steve Hackett knew that Phill could persuade him to stay.
Yeah. Well, I've heard Steve Hackett say that, and I've heard Phill said that in here. Phill Collins. Anyway, so yeah, the Genesis stuff the early Genesis stuff is quite interesting, but curiously brief. I thought, considering there's massively interesting characters there, including Peter Gabriel. The Peter Gabriel stuff just seems to fly by.
Yeah, that's true.
And
maybe he feels that's up to Peter to do his own one, isn't it?
I suppose it is. Yeah. I mean, a big part of Genesis' history is recording the Lamb.
Yeah.
When Peter Gabriel is going through a hard time at home and he's asking for a bit of leave, and they say no.
There's no regard. The band comes first.
Given that the fact that Phill Collins is a multi-millionaire, and he says in here he's given away 30 million not given away. He's paid 30 million in alimony, and he's still massively wealthy. And this guy's got money. Yeah. You'd think he'd want to come to terms with that, especially seeing as he says he's such close friends with Peter Gabriel still, and they always have been. Yeah,
well, Phill was the one who always wanted to do it until he couldn't. That's the problem. I think Peter Gabriel in the end was willing to do it, but it was too late. That Phill couldn't do it anymore. I think actually on the DVD from 2007, which is just the Rome gig, I think the CD is from different concerts, but the Rome gig is the DVD, and they had to edit in a different show for the 5th. They played the middle section, and you can actually see it. And Phill fucks up. He goes wrong, and apparently his wrist went numb, and it's weird. It was when that show, we see basically the start of his problems, and they had to edit in a different show where he did it right. Very strange. And of course, the rest of the band won't be able to cope with that at all because Phill never. That's why they got him in the band, because they couldn't cope.
That is the great thing. How dedicated a drummer he was in his early career. It was all about the drumming. Yeah. He just wanted to drum, basically. And that's why he's such a good drummer, sort of thing. Completely self-taught. And from a family that, well, I think his mother encouraged him, but his father was not so supportive.
Oh yeah, he had very much a distant father, maybe.
Yeah.
His father had a woman and was also a working man.
Yeah, but I think when he told him he wanted to pursue drumming,
he's like, yeah,
his father didn't talk to him, sort of thing. Anyway, but it's very, yeah. I mean, I actually find personality-wise, we did Bill Bruford last week. I actually find Phill a much more appealing character. I find Bill Bruford, when you actually see him, he's not. There's a certain attitude there which is, I don't know how to say it. It's
aloof.
I don't think it's overly aloof. It's a sort of, I'm going to say it, I think he's slightly smug. Because he's got a fantastic reputation and he knows it. Yeah.
And looks down on the fans.
I don't know if he looks down on people. He's just,
I don't know whether, maybe it is true, but he's aware of it. And he's trying to play it down, but fails.
Yeah.
I mean, at one of the concerts, he made some comment about John Anderson. I can't remember what it was. Just an off the cuff sort of joke, and it was funny, and I laughed. But then he had to go, oh yeah, but he's constantly striving to work hard, and he's so creative, blah, blah, because everyone thinks he's sort of slating everyone off, and it's just his very British sense of humour.
Yeah.
Very, very dry.
Yeah.
And that was part of the problem actually with King Crimson as well. We're going back to Bill now.
Well, yeah, but
whereas Phil's the opposite in that
it
seems he's the bridge builder who gets on with everybody.
Yeah, he does come across in his writing as quite approachable and amenable.
And that's the thing, he's the nice one, and yet he's, Phill Collins, hate Phill Collins.
Well, he did have a lot of success in the 80s.
With boring music.
And it's not entirely clear why.
Well, you can see why. It was timing. He didn't, and it wasn't, because it wasn't planned, it was genuine, and yet fit the time of, well, yeah, you can sell this. You know, play it over and over and over again, and everyone will have to buy it because it's been played at them. You know, so. But he was just making music. Why can't he make music? And the bit that really grind my teeth angry. His encounter with Noel Gallagher in the 90s, probably late 90s. So Noel Gallagher thought he was king of the world.
I like taking out it, going out it, hanging, having it large.
You know that Oasis now, or at least the two of them, are the worst rock star smug gits now. You know, because they only made two albums or whatever, and then they were crap. And because Phill, he was living, where was he living? It was like Barbados or something, you know, because he could live where he liked. So he decided, well, I'm going to retire there now. That's where I'm going to live. And Noel Gallagher was there on holiday, and I think Phill was actually playing with the local band or something. And he said, "Oh, Noel Gallagher, do you want to come up and play with us?" And Noel was like, "Oh, no, you're all right," because Noel's going to hate Phill Collins. Phill Collins, he's so cool. And there was something with the Oasis saying they're going to smash Phill Collins and Sting.
Well, yeah, Sting maybe.
But it shows they just don't have a clue.
Wow.
So that and you know, all that 90s stuff, and because it's 90s, understandably that's when the Phill hate thing happened. That's when all the hateful people happened who hate Phill Collins. They're much more hateful people. Blur, however good you think Blur are, I think some of the later albums I think are really good. As people, I wouldn't invite them in my house. Horrible people. Snooty kids. You know, and Oasis, they're horrible people. However good the songs are, they're horrible people. You know, whereas Phill just comes across as a normal man.
Yeah,
who's very, very talented.
Yeah, and because he's had, you know, he was there at a great period in music, early doors. You know, he recorded at Abbey Road with George Harrison, didn't he?
Yeah,
that's a great story. That is.
It is. I thought he was just on it and not credited. I didn't realise. He was just like 16,
yeah.
And he wasn't really. He may not even be on it.
Yeah, and George Harrison played a joke on him, which was actually really, really good.
Yeah. They got Ray Cooper to just go and pretend it was him. And he's like, "Oh my god, no!" it wasn't real. So it's not clear whether that tape's been found. Or maybe it is, but you can't tell he's there, or it was just a chance. It was just one of those things.
Yeah. And of course, so yeah, I mean, because of that, you know, he went through an interesting period in music, and he was involved. There's a lot of interesting relationships there.
Yeah,
he's brushed up against a lot of people, and that makes it interesting.
Yeah, he roaded for Yes, remember, briefly, or a little bit anyway, but basically set up Bill Bruford's drums. So that's interesting. That's cool.
Yeah,
and subsequently invited him into the band, almost, sort of, as much as anyone was invited into the band. You only leave Genesis, nobody joins. When they did, it was terrible. It was bizarre and disaster.
So yeah, actually, as a book, it's pretty good. You know, it's an autobiography, not musical like well,
nothing like the Bill one at all.
No, nothing. I mean, from the Bill one, you get information, don't you?
Yeah, and a critique of the industry. And all that. Phill doesn't do it. Phill just tells his story.
Yeah.
Well, this was my wife, then I did this, and this happened.
Pretty cool. And it actually comes across a little bit because he starts as he's playing with his son or something like that, and he gets a dodgy ear. Yeah. So you kind of get the feeling it's like, wow, I've got to do this. Now's the time, sort of thing.
Yeah, like he's falling apart.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and then he became an alcoholic.
Yeah.
And of course, he was big friends with Eric Clapton in his dark years in the 80s of making those huge albums like August, which is strange when you think about it. August, it's probably good songs though. Probably it's a bit like sort of Chris Rea or something like that. And the drums are the loudest in the mix, then the vocals, then the bass, then the guitar. But the drums on August, they're just it's not. It could well not be Phill. But that's interesting because it sounds like maybe Phill was someone who enjoyed drinking for a long time, and it was only when he retired was that a problem because he didn't have anything else to do.
Yeah,
he kept himself. So really, he can't retire. That's what it is. He's just that kind of person. He didn't. He's got to do something, you know. Unlike Bill, who seemed to do it with dignity and apparently with ease, and it was the right time to do it, and he left this legacy of awesome, and there's no what ifs with Bill Bruford. He did it. He did everything. You know. There is the Genesis question, and they did a reunion in '82, which was a mess. It's all right actually. Listen to the bootleg; it's not that bad, but they'll never release it. But they never actually. They talked about it a couple of times. They did the 1999 box set, and then they talked about it in like 2006. And it just never happened, and it is too late now. I think. I don't think Phill can play. There was a suggestion that they're waiting for Phill to finish his tour to see if he can get it together. I don't think so. From the impression I've got, I don't think he can play the drums anymore. He can't physically do it, and even if he can play a bit, he can't play the Lamb. You know, and the only way he would do it is if he could do it properly. You listen to it on the re-recorded version of it in '99. It's so busy. You know, it's great. It's such a groove.
It'd be kind of cool actually if they could do a sort of, you know, Led Zeppelin had John Bonham's son. Well, maybe he could play with his son.
Well, they could have Chester Thompson, which they did for so many years, but you know, I don't. It wouldn't be right. You know, Phill would have to be able to do his thing. You take that. It might not be obvious, but you take that out of the Lamb, and there'll be a big hole there. The drumming on the Lamb is fantastic. You know, people think of Cinema Show and things like that, obviously, but I tell you, on the Lamb, there's some amazing stuff on there.
Good book.
Good book.
Yeah.
I've got a long time.
Yeah, I the one thing that's missing from it, I know I've talked about the early Genesis, but I was really interested to see, because he's quite, he doesn't come from a deprived background, he comes from a middle class background. His dad was an insurance salesman, and they had their own house and stuff like that. So it's not like he's from the...
he's not like Black Sabbath or something, yeah.
He's not like that, but I mean, he is going into a world of Charthouse guys, incredibly posh.
He walks around the back and there's a swimming pool. Would you like to dip in the pool? And my brother appears in a smoking jacket. Hello.
I was kind of interested in how that would have played out and how he adapted to that sort of thing and whether he felt any pressure from it.
Yeah, he must. Well, like you said, he thought, this is great.
He didn't seem to, you know.
You think, and what we said with Bill Bruford about the slog of touring, that these people aren't mega rich, not yet, anyway. You know, and it was. I couldn't do that now. At my age, I couldn't do that kind of touring, the up and down the country and all that, sleeping in the van and everything in the winter. But with Genesis, of course, that wasn't like that at all. They had a big hamper full of sausages. Fine. They didn't have to have all the crap food.
Yeah.
So you can see why that was appealing with a really good band who needed a really good drummer. It's just one of those things, isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah, interesting. We're going to egg it.
Yeah. 4. I'm going to give it 4 eggs.
Well, I agree.
On the scale of, I've read so many of these books.
Yeah. I'll give it a 4 as well.
Yeah, it's a good one. But if you like autobiographies generally, not just music ones, it's a good one.
Yeah.
It's got a story to it and all that stuff.
We are going to put a link in the video description, which is going to be an Amazon affiliate link.
Mm-hmm.
And if you fancy buying this book, we can have some biscuits with our coffee.
Capitalism in action.
We're just obsessed with making money now, Kev.
Yeah, it's an obsession. It's making several pounds. £42 in total. So yeah, great stuff. Catch you next week for, obviously, you must probably figured it out by now, who the third drummer's going to be. It's Nick Mason.
Yeah!